Hey, what's up everybody on YouTube? Figured I'd make a quick video about what it takes to put these cheap two speaker pod panels on your G-body. Was not as straightforward as I was expecting. If you want to do a decent install that's not going to fall off the car immediately. Still not real sold on their long-term longevity, but these are some of the tips I found might be useful if you're trying to do this yourself. Keep watching. All right, to start, here's some of the hardware they include, which might be okay for some of the mock-up stuff. Basically, little sheet metal screws, self-tappers, and I'm not really even sure what these are for. Looks like little tiny drywall screws. Got some Velcro pads to hold the that black little trim piece on right about there. Probably gonna have to find a better method to hold that on. As you can see, the rod door panel, that's gonna cover up some of your screw holes. All right, on the other side, to improve on the hardware they provided, I decided to use these call them grip certs or rivet nuts. You can get a kit at Harbor Freight, pretty cheap. I've already started, installed a couple like here and here, which I found that's the two screws behind the elbow rest. Kind of get you started. Kind of see it's like this hole and that hole, kind of some good holes to get it hung off of to get the rest of the door panel registered. And once you kind of have those started, you can kind of mark out and drill your other fastener locations. Probably do a good enough job with the self-tappers and then remove those once you're happy with where the doors panel's sitting, and do the rivet nuts from there. Another detail you'll have to address on the driver's side, if you have the manual mirror adjuster, you're gonna have to drill a pretty odd shaped hole for that. Drill slash cut, I guess. Here's the factory panel. As you can see, it's a pretty odd shaped hole. All I did was took a wide piece of masking tape, traced around it with a razor blade, and then as you can see, just stick it to the new panel where you like it. And I just did a combination of kind of traced it with a razor blade, and then I guess the regular rounded edges, I drilled those out with a drill bit, then kind of connected the dots with a little tiny Dremel cutting wheel. I guess that gives you an idea. Cut that little puzzle piece out, and then factory had it held on with these little push on washers, which I destroyed getting off, but like the Dorman help aisle, little self thread cutting nuts seem to hold this on good enough for our purposes. Just thought I'd throw that little note. All right, now we're gonna actually get on to mounting this door panel. As I said, I got these two grip certs put in, threaded in rivet nuts. They include these little plastic cut-off deals as like reinforcing washers for those two hole locations. I'm just using machine screws to match the threads of the rivet nuts, which happens to be 1024. So I'm gonna hang it off of those. Like this. And of course their holes don't quite line up with the factory holes. So we're gonna have to do a little hole reaming, it looks like. actually like the how this hole lines up a little better, so I'm gonna try to leave this hole alone and remount the front hole. Which is off by about half the hole diameter. Let's see here. It's extremely thin plastic, so it's pretty easy to fix this. But it's probably also going to be quite likely for it to break in the future. Yep, that should do it. You got these two in there. It's kind of roughly held. Roughly held where you want it. And I do emphasize roughly. At this point, kind of just feel your way around and try to check all your gaps and your edges. Trying to get it sitting somewhat or as close to correct as you can get it. And I think at this point I'm just going to take one of their self-tapping screws and kind of nail it down like that. Stand by. Right about there. All right. It's not too bad there. Yeah, like I said, these kind of just serve as placeholders until you can get the panel back and off and out of the way for the rivet nuts. Still looking pretty good. Which there's three, as you can see clearly, across the bottom here. Just goes in the dead center of this little recess. You have another hole clear up here and another here. I'm just going to use a little drill bit. All right, those are all marked. So now I'm going to take it all back apart so I can install the rivet nuts. Which I'll just show you one of those. Otherwise, it's going to get extremely long. And be careful when you're drilling the holes, you don't plunge too deep and scratch or, God forbid, break your glass. That's how these work. screw it on. I drilled this a little undersized, but I kind of force it. There we go. And just squeeze it. This thing won't pinch them in one go, so I kind of gotta do it in steps. Pretty much the process. Make a little more progress and show y'all some more. All right, now we've got all of our holes drilled, our rivet nuts installed along the bottom edge. Might jump back to a couple other details you're gonna run into. You're gonna want to move these little clip nuts. As you can see, I moved one over here from your old original door panel. Or if you're missing your lower door panels, you can get something pretty equivalent to it from Harbor Freight. I'll show you that. That's actually what I use to mount my speakers to the doors. But yeah, you just need to move these. That's what catches the screw holes for your armrest. So those go there. Let's see, I'll show you. All right, and here's the kit I was talking about, which is pretty much the equivalent of what I just transferred over for the armrest. Actually, this is what I used as well to mount the speakers to the door panels. And since no, it's just thin plastic, which I think would probably pull through. Basically, just mount your speaker, mark the holes, drill the holes, and slide these clips on, and should be much more secure. All right, now back to the door panel mounting. All right, we're back. As I was saying, now that we've got all the rivet nuts installed, we can hang the door panel back up, again, temporarily, for about the 9th time. We can put the 2 original screws in we had. Get them loosely, it's gonna have to come back off because I still gotta make the mounting holes for my speakers, of course. Alright, now for these 3 hole locations, they give you these little plastic washers that have Velcro facing on them, which their intention is to go in these 3 locations as like washers for the screws, which will stick this finishing panel right there. To do that, they didn't really include any hardware that I thought would acceptably work with these plastic washers, so what I did was get some of these taper headed machine screws. That's what I went with, at least. You gotta pop some holes through this Velcro. Which is easy as that. Actually, I might go a little bit bigger, just to give clearance for that screw head to recess on. Not the smartest way to do this. But just like this. Actually, I have to make these holes bigger too. Yeah, just drilling clearance for the larger machine screws I'm using here. You just repeat that all 3 of these locations. These other 2 front holes, if you can see, have about a finger's width of gap between the door sheet metal and the panel, which if you just ran a screw through that, I believe you'd probably collapse and crack this door panel. So my solution to that is taking some little, it's probably a 1/4 inch, probably any kind of fuel line would work, and I'm going to cut out a couple little spacers to go between the door panel and the door, kind of so it has a little bit of crush, which I think will hopefully help the screws from loosening up on their own. But it's pretty easy. You have good access due to the holes for the speaker. That's a little too long, so I'll trim a little bit more off, kind of like that. I figure if you keep it a little bit long, you can just crank it down into it with the screw should squish the. Oh, I don't have any screws. Anyway, that's basically the gist of that. Cut a spacer for here and for that frontmost screw location, and you'll be getting about 50% of the way there. I'll show you some more. All right, here's a few last tidbits. Got the door panel loosely hanging up. Probably see my, well, let me get a light. Kind of see my fuel line rubber spacer there behind that screw hole. And I would probably put one behind this forwardmost screw hole. You can see there's a good bit of, maybe you can't see it, but a good bit of gap between the panel and the door. This is the way I chose to mount the speakers. Just held the grill ring up, drilled the holes, then you slide these U-clips from Harbor Freight in to kind of reinforce the holes so they don't blow out. The next fun part is they didn't really make the bump out for the speaker deep enough, so unless you have a really shallow speaker, which this is nothing terribly bulky, not gonna fit, not flush anyway. So to solve that, you kind of got to eyeball where the magnet's hitting, and then I just took a big hole saw and hole saw for clearance for the magnet. Had pretty good success on that side. Kind of sucks. I have heard, I believe this forward hole is where the power window motor resides on the power window car. This is a manual window car, so that might not even be an option. In that case, you probably would have to get a fairly thick spacer ring just to get the magnet spaced off the door a little further, but I just chose to cut my doors for clearance. After that, you're pretty well home free. You can probably stick these little trim pieces as is. They're just textured plastic. I'm gonna probably try to cover mine with some sort of upholstery. And probably not the right way to do it, but all I did to paint mine, they come black just like that insert, was took a maroon Scotch-Brite pad and wet sanded them with that and that glass cleaner, and then good old Rust-Oleum. I did espresso brown, which is actually what I painted my dashboard with about a year ago. And it's been holding up pretty good. It's a little dirty, but not terribly faded yet. Anyway, yeah, definitely not an easy bolt-on project, but I don't know, a nice way to get some better speakers than the 3.5-inch dash and 4x10s in the rear deck. So a worthy upgrade, cheap enough to try at least for about $100 worth of panels, and several trips to the hardware store. Appreciate y'all watching. Oop, almost forgot one more detail. The damn door panels are actually made a little too long to where I had to trim this front edge. Looks pretty crappy. Just to get the door to shut. Otherwise it was, you can see it's very tight against that that panel. It's probably a much better way to fix that, but I was getting a little aggravated. And it's really not that visible until I've pointed it out. But I just took a cut-off wheel and probably had to trim a whole 1/4 inch off the front of this door panel just to get the door shut. So that should be the end of the unpleasant surprises, but kind of a nice little upgrade for the money. Still probably do it again, but definitely not an easy bolt-on. All right, that's really all I got this time. Appreciate y'all watching.